Divination's weekly podcast. Wait till I get my didgeridoo in here. Anyway,
we're working on a theme song.
It's a work in progress. So, how do I start this?
Hey everyone, how's it going tonight?
Hi everybody. So, we got a special treat for you. I don't know. Well, first I'm going to show you this stone because that's what Mom told me to do first thing. This is a potlight. And it is going to be a gift on next week's podcast for whoever wins the reading. As a big thank you for your liking and sharing and coming and see us every day and supporting the store because we're coming up on almost a year now, guys. Can you believe it?
It's amazing.
Would you just look at that stone, Ken?
Beautiful.
It's pretty.
Anyway, so some stuff about a potlight. It said to help.
What did I do?
It's said to help ease asthma, cystic fibrosis, hay fever, emphysema, and other respiratory problems, and also good to help with eczema.
Say hey, Vicky.
Hey, Vicky.
Eczema.
A potlight is said to be the Reiki crystal because its effects are said to be similar to having a Reiki treatment. And that's just the physical benefits. So for the emotional benefits, if you place a potlight on your third eye, it will help you feel whole and retrieve what you have given away of your identity to others. A great stone for emotional healing and spiritual work. And it helps with the heart and the third eye chakra. So again, that's going to be a gift to say thank you on next week's podcast for whoever wins the reading. And next week is actually going to be Mystic Mike about grounding. That's fun.
Yeah, it'll be a great show. So just to explain to everybody, I'm actually learning how to moderate this shindig. So
Just in
I
case.
am behind the screen tonight.
You're behind the scenes.
And you have Ashley, Ken, and Kyle, a new face to people for the reading. So, hey Vicky, hey Ernie, hey Mom, hey Sarah, hey Jude. It's nice
Hi,
to
everybody.
see you all join us. So it's quite fun being on this, except for when I mess up.
It's okay, I'm here to fix
So what
it.
other announcements we got? Therapeutic Touch, that's a good one.
Yeah.
I don't even know what day it is, but it's in Pecto next
May
time.
30th.
It's May 30th.
Yeah, up in Pecto.
And
Yeah,
you know,
and
And
then-
that's a Tuesday.
Yeah,
is it
and
not?
then-
Wednesday and Picto Tuesday.
Oh.
And then yesterday they had it in New Glasgow. And then we have the yoga in the Plymouth Community Center Tuesday and Thursdays. Do you see?
7 p.m. and it's $7.
Next week we're starting going back on
We're going.
Tuesday.
All the time.
Things have just been really busy wrapping
Good
up the
school.
podcast for the season, getting our ghost hunting episodes started. So you can talk about that.
Oh yeah. So we're going ghost hunting. We're starting our own kind of Ghostbusters with our.
Ken's so pumped over it that he.
You can talk about it.
Jumping for
he
joy
was
all
supposed
day.
to stay in the store. He was here before me, and I get here before 10. And he's like, "So I'm early." Okay. And then I got here and he was playing Ghostbusters. Ken's so pumped up for the ghost hunting.
Definitely.
We thought we'd bring you youthful energy tonight with the mythical beast, and plus I get to play it behind.
And I got a super cool name for this one, but we're going to do that after the announcements. And then we have Earth Arc Horse Rescue.
Yeah.
It's Sundays 1 to 4 p.m. That's the open houses anyway.
Yeah.
And they're always looking for donations of cat food or
Hey.
hay and oats, and not the Quaker oats. We learned that one. The mental health peer-to-peer support groups every Wednesday from 6 to 8. The Roots for Youth who are looking for donations of clothes, money,
Everything.
food, literally anything that you need to survive, they are looking for. And they're also looking for volunteers, which would be a huge help to them. So,
Hey Sue, hey Crystal, it's nice to see you join us.
hi everybody.
We're having topsy-turvy day.
Now, you ready for this, guys? We're going to high five, okay?
All right.
Now it's time for Mythical Beasts and where to find them.
You guys are so silly.
I've been planning this all day.
Great.
Okay, so you get to start this.
All right.
I don't think I forgot anything.
No.
Crystal says hi, guys.
Hi, Crystal.
Okay. First one is a different one. It's a creature known as the Kappa, which I think literally translates to river child.
Ernie says hi too.
Hi,
Hey,
Ernie.
Andy.
It's a lesser demon of sorts, and in a lot of Japanese and Asian folklore, I noticed through research and stuff. What?
Actually, a question for Kyle.
What?
Don't they have Fletcher demons in RuneScape?
Kappas
Yes.
are in Harry
Okay.
Potter too.
Isla,
Yes, they are.
it's another video game to play.
Mom says hi to Dad.
Hi,
Hey.
Nanny.
Hey, Nanny.
But unlike demons in sort of the Christian scope of things, demons there kind of vary in malevolence. Kind of like you've got some who are pretty tame or friendly, or others that are quite mischievous, and then you got others who are just flat out evil. It's sort of a general blanket term. What?
Nothing.
Oh. Let's see here. Where? But anyway, Kappas have been described as being almost reptilian, and they're not all that big. Some of the bigger ones were even described as being like the height of a child kind of thing. Yeah, basically. And they're said to be stronger than a full-grown man. Their skin, because they're like reptilians, it's like a bluish green.
I was going to say, the guy in the picture almost looks like a snake boy. Here's the picture.
Yeah,
Looks more like a turtle
Can you
man
see
to
the
me.
picture, Mom?
it is sort of a because
There we go. Snake boy.
where was it? Oh yeah, and apparently, they smell like fish because they live in a
They're
river.
aquatic things.
Yeah.
That's
They
really
got
cool.
a tortoise-like body, webbed hands and feet, and a beak. And on top of their head is actually kind of like a small indentation
Almost
or a
like a bowl.
depression. Yeah. And that's almost like a source of their power because it contains water in it, right? And if it ever goes dry or if it ever is emptied, they are unable to move and will eventually die.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's kind of sad.
Most adult Kappa live almost like hermits. They're quite solitary. However, there were some that befriended other kind of spirits and demons and even humans. Younger Kappa, however, live in more close-knit kind of communities.
Almost yeah.
What?
I just lost my train of thought. I'm sorry.
Oh. And one thing I thought was kind of interesting is Kappa are said to enjoy eating, like they eat a lot. And one of their most favorite food, apparently, is, raw innards and cucumbers.
That's a weird combination.
I
Yeah,
gotta
no.
have your veggies.
But I mean,
And apparently, as a lot of the myths and legends about them go, is that they're incredibly smart and they learned quickly more than, say, the other spirits or whatever human languages. And there's even a few stories that talked about how the Kappa were really intelligent when it came to medicine and, say, bone setting and stuff like that. So the legend goes that they taught humans how to do that. In the ancient Shinto religion, Kappa were revered, and it wasn't all that odd for people to leave offerings by rivers and stuff like that. And the payment that the Kappas would give back would be like irrigating fields. They would befriend abandoned or lonely children. And they'd even, say, attend sporting events. However, there were a lot of people who feared Kappa as well because
they sound terrifying.
they had even though for the most part a lot of them were like mischievous and stuff like that. Yeah. A lot of them, in terms of mischievous, they're almost kind of perverted in a way because they'd be peeking up kimonos and shit like that, or they'd be, one thing I thought was kind of interesting was, as some of the lore about them goes, they have 3 anuses.
What?
So they would make a game of farting in crowds and public areas. Kappa.
Really?
Yeah.
I know a couple Kappas. I know at least 3.
I think I got a Kappa sitting right beside me.
But anyway, they did actually, some of them had like a really nasty, violent side. Like on account of them having a beak, they would often, attack people by biting or drag them into the water and drown them. For for some reason, I couldn't find any more information on this, but for some reason they had a hate for a lot of livestock or mostly like quadruped land animals, like especially cows or horses. So for little to no reason at all, they would go out and attack them, maul them and shit. A lot of the more evil kind of Kappas in some legends were known to even rape people who were swimming in their particular body of water, or they would end up eating people alive, and usually starting with the anus, because apparently there I'm not making this up, there was apparently inside the rectum there was a sacred piece of flesh or something like that. It was supposed to be divine, so the Kappa would go right for that first.
Interesting.
Like, that's what I found.
Okay.
And like in water, it's supposed to like almost impossible to escape a Kappa in water, because I mean, they're basically like a amphibian, right? But on land, there's a couple ways you could get away from them, right? Pretty much. They were a lot clumsier on land, but it was almost like a fatal flaw that worked against them. The water in their head, and the fact that a lot of Kappa were almost like fairies in the sense that they adhered to a certain code of conduct in a way, like almost a formal, polite behavior. So if you were to bow to a Kappa, it was supposed to bow back to you, and that would spill the water in its head. It wouldn't even think about it. It would just do it. And it would pretty much be frozen until there were some legends that say, like, if people bowed and the Kappa's water would spill out, that they could pretty much get the Kappa to swear loyalty to them if they in turn refilled the water.
Okay.
And here's one thing I thought you could show that picture too. I don't know how well it would turn out because it's kind of blurry, but there were
I hope so. There we go.
there were the mummified remains of this thing that were passed down a family line. I forget the name of them, but it was passed down for a few generations, and then they donated it to science. And they did so many tests on these remains, but they could never quite pinpoint the genetic makeup of the animal. And the family that had them thought it was mummified remains of a Kappa that used to protect their family. So
Cool.
that's pretty much what I found out about them.
I can't turn my page. It's stuck. Okay, cool.
Right.
Bigfoot.
No, it's not Bigfoot. It's
Goatman.
It's Goatman. I couldn't find a better picture, though.
That's kind of cool. I'm gonna show that one too.
It's so hard to find. Either it was really bad artist
Bring it in
renderings, or
Hold it still.
that was the best photo I could find. The rest were too blurry.
He's kind of cool looking.
Oh, he's a big goat.
There you go.
Do you want to do this one?
Not
or-
really.
No.
There's a lot of words in there I can't pronounce.
All right. Well,
I got
Hey
you on.
Terry, how are you?
Hi Terry.
And Riley joined, and
Hi Riley.
a couple other people I forgot to say. Colleen, hey Colleen, how are you?
I totally called dibs on the leprechaun though.
yeah. All right. Goatman is sort of the relatively modern mythical beast of
More
sorts.
modern than a Kappa.
Yeah. Yeah, I suppose. Because there's been sort of legends about him before the 40s and 50s, but a lot of the more well-known sightings happened around there. And he's been sighted all across a lot of the southern states, like certain parts of Texas, Missouri, areas like that. The one I did more research on was a lot of the sightings and stuff in Maryland. And there's like tons of different origin stories about Goatman. One of them is it was a genetic experiment that got loose. Apparently they believe it took place in the Beltsville Research Agricultural Center in Maryland. And that's supposed to be where the scientists a few decades ago, I think they said it was like during around World War II, something like that. He was playing around with gene splicing because he wanted to make a super soldier or something like that. So he was blending animal DNA with human. And he tested out this thing he was working on one of his assistants, and that sort of became Goatman, and he escaped and started plaguing the woods of the area. Another one, and this is the more Christian or church view of it, is that Goatman is in fact like a form of Satan that's just been brought about by cultists in the area to plague the woods. There was also another legend that took place during the 30s. It was about a goat herder who died, but he became a vengeful spirit because he had cursed a group of teens that went out and slaughtered his goats.
Hey, Kay. Kay joined.
Hey, Kay.
Hey, and Goatman's this massive, like, he's got pretty much the build of a huge man, torso, the head of a goat and the legs of a goat, and he's a lot of, I want to say sources, but a lot of people say that he has gray matted fur and allegedly carries an axe. And he's supposed to be always roaming the woods and country roads and stuff. A lot of people who've encountered him say that he enjoys toying with people, like kind of stalking them or spooking them and kind of essentially being kind of almost sadistic in a way with his mannerisms. Predominantly his victims are teens or hikers, or mostly teens, I've noticed. But
Sorry, Kay's saying hi to everybody. Hey, Kay.
hey. But yeah, he'll stalk them, and at times some legends say he even drags them into the woods where he eventually eats them. But there's Fletchertown Road and Governor's Bridge Road, which are said to be his main hotspots.
Read this.
There have been many occurrences, though, that he's sort of been blamed for. One case that I found was in 1962. 14 people were murdered. It was a hiking group, 12 kids, preteen, teens, and 2 adult chaperones. Allegedly, there were a couple who survived this attack by Goatman, and they told police that this monster came out of the woods and hacked a lot of the hikers up. And while he was doing it, he was braying like a goat and making all these noises and stuff. And the police later went into the woods and found where the hikers had been, and they investigated and found a bunch of hacked up limbs, scattered remains and shit, a lot of which looked to be like half-eaten.
Maybe we should cut down on the gore fest,
Okay.
because sometimes kids do watch. Crystal said, hope no kids are watching this.
I don't want to scare people away, kind of.
But anyway, they went and they found a trail. It led into this cave, and they didn't bother going in. Another case happened in 1971 where a dog went missing and was later found dead by Fletchertown Road. A lot of the teens in the area, one of them was even taken in for questioning because her alibi didn't kind of make sense. But anyway, they heard nothing but kind of braying, like a goat noise in the area. But there's allegedly there's this house out behind St. Mark the Evangelist High School out there, and it's been vacant for at least 40 some years. No one's moved in, no one's owned it. It's kind of just there. And a lot of people said that Goatman has been seen in and around there. Like that's his base of operations kind of thing before he goes out and stalks the woods.
I wonder how many people who are watching watch Supernatural. Yay for Supernatural. I love that show. But every time you say Goatman, it makes me think of the episode of Thin Man, the urban legend that grew because of someone's imagination.
Yep.
So we have our own version of Thin Man. It's Goatman. Hey, Jim. How are you?
Hi, Jim.
There's one thing that's called Governor Bridge, which is out there. Locals have another name for it. They call it Crybaby Ridge because allegedly if you park your car in or around it at night, you can hear them, or just braying at goats or just menacing kind of noises. You can hear squawking and shit like that, and they don't know exactly what is causing it, kind of thing.
I hope Kyle reads next one with Skinwalkers.
Okay.
Follow the native heritage. Well, not our kind of.
Oh, it starts there.
Oh, we're doing Skinwalkers.
And they be creepy as hell.
Skinwalkers. Though many native nations have variation of skinwalkers, many native nations have a variation of skinwalkers.
Same.
The purpose of the research into the Navajo variant of the infamous skinwalkers. Navajo? No. Some of the Navajo Nation still firmly believe in skinwalkers, and even now are wary on discussing them out of fear and retribution. According to Navajo legend, a skinwalker is a medicine man or a witch who attained a high power and insight, but chose to use their power for evil and cruelty. They inflict torment on their own tribe. Another way they say of becoming a skinwalker, starting one's path to the powerful yet infernal of Skinwalker, is to kill a close family member. It is believed that skinwalkers wear the skins of the animals they transform into. It's considered taboo to wear the pelt of any animal. In fact, the Navajo are only known to wear two hides, sheepskin and buckskin, both of which are only used for ceremonial purposes. Though they could take the shape of an animal, it's said that the copy was not a pure one, in the sense that it would be disproportionate or they would have glowing red eyes.
Mm-hmm.
I lost my place.
So did I.
Glowing red eyes. Some lore states that if a skinwalker is shot or wounded while in its animal form, then the wound will still be on them when they shift back into their human form. The belief in skinwalkers is still very strong. Many modern members of the Navajo Nation still have encounters with the beast thought to be skinwalkers. Tales involve knocking at doors, red eyes in bushes or windows, most of which take place on hunting trips. Another thing skinwalkers are notorious for is being able to not just mimic animals, but people, voices, and faces.
That's your spot again?
Yeah. There's one case where hearing of a young Navajo boy who was awoken by what he thought was his mother's voice. His parents were both on a trip, so to hear her voice was odd. Also said that the voice just sounded tainted, as if put through a voice modulator or something of the like. He went out to the back door where the voice seemed to emanate from, but as he gazed into the backyard, the voice began to demand to let him in, but all he saw was a black shape huddled away from the light with red eyes. Terrified, he ran back to his room and called his parents. The rest of the night he heard howling, braying, and banging on the walls and doors. They say if you are brave enough to track down a skinwalker and discover its true name, and say it in full to the skinwalker, it will die having to acknowledge the evils it has inflicted. It said you should never lock eyes with a skinwalker because that would give them power to enter your body and control you. One of the most famous or infamous places in regards to skinwalkers is a place...
Herbert says, hey.
Hey.
Place known as Sherman Ranch in Utah. It has two other names, Skinwalker Ranch and UFO Ranch. It's located near the small town of Ballard in Utah. The ranch is over 500 acres and also borders the Ute?
Yeah, I think it's Ute.
Ute Native Reservation, and even many of the Ute Nation believe that the land is fertile ground for skinwalkers, and many refuse to go near it, saying it is the path of the skinwalkers, as many believe that some Navajo shamans cursed that land many generations ago. The land just so happens to currently be a hotbed of both UFO sightings and Skinwalker-related phenomena. When the Sherman family first moved in, they noticed many oddities, such as deadbolts on every door and window, both inside and outside, from voices coming out of nowhere to strange noises, sightings and cattle mutilation in strange tracks. Excuse me. Sherman family were beginning to see why the Ute tribe stayed far away from that land. One night they saw what was thought to be a wolf attacking cattle. They unloaded several shots into the wolf, but it seemed unharmed. Not even startled. It was shot at 6 more times, but nothing happened. It eventually got its fill of slaughtered cattle and vanished into the night.
So, we're gonna do this little dude next. He's my favorite. He's it.
There seems to be one spot on the camera that's like split.
You see it?
Yep.
Hope everyone saw that.
I'm
So,
just gonna try and wipe it off. Sorry, everybody.
leprechauns, they're one of the most well-known fairies, I guess. That's what they are. They wear a lot of solid green. In the earliest legends, though, they were said to wear red. Like, not green. They were described as wizened old men with beards, as there are no female leprechauns. And we've all heard about the pot of gold at the end of the rainbow and how they're mysterious tricksters and will try to fool you so you don't steal their pot of gold. The name has a few plausible origins. You can read those because I don't know how to pronounce them.
I couldn't find any pronouncing on them either. So, Leaf Brogan,
Which is translated as shoemaker.
Alan Logan says hi.
Hey.
Hey.
And then there's another
Jane Henley says hi.
And then there's another word we don't know how to pronounce, which translates to small body.
Luckerpan, I think. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
Another variant of the name is said to be based on when Christianity began its siege on the ancient folklore and the god. You're gonna pronounce some funny words.
Luke Romaine.
Yeah, well, that's what they changed it to.
Okay.
Because it was the god Lou, and they started calling him Lou Cremain. Because they changed him from the original deity he was into a shoemaker in folklore. Which is where they say some of the origins come from.
So they're known all around the world as leprechauns, but leprechauns actually, that name was that one. It was only used in
Leinster.
Leinster, an eastern province of Ireland, where Dublin,
Meath.
and
Kilkenny.
whereas every other region of Ireland had their own name, but the same concept of fairy. Like all fairies in Ireland, they are said to be the kin of the.
My computer